Hey there, I'm Jason. You guys know me by now because we've already started the program, but this is a week before we start the program, so we're recording a video tour of campus today. We're going to look around some of the buildings on campus. We're on bikes, so we'll do a little time lapse in between, so you'll see slow and fast. I have Nicholas de Castillo here with me today. You guys are familiar with him now as well. He also is one of the faculty in the program, and you'll occasionally see that's Finn. He's my 7-year-old who will be riding around with us today as well, and you'll probably see him throughout the program. Anyway, we're in the atrium, the architecture building right now. I'm gonna go away from me. This is sacred space for us. The studios are here. People spend public time out here. It means a lot to us. These are the studios over here. We basically inhabit the first floor, the third floor, and all of that raised up platform over there. So anyway, we're gonna get started on the tour here in a little bit, and we're gonna go around different places of campus. What we're gonna do is come back and give a separate tour of the building for another time. So there you go, and we're gonna get started. Okay, we rode next door, which really is a brief ride because that's the School of Architecture right next door. And now we're at the College of the Arts. This used to be part of the School of Architecture, and our other allied disciplines were part of the School of Arts originally, and then that changed so that we became separate colleges. But these buildings were designed to house both of this. So we're by the library and where our studios are, and then all the art studios are over here as well. So it makes a really cool environment to have the artists and the designers all in the same part of campus. So I'm going to turn this over to Nick here. He did his thesis, significant parts about the building. So I'll let him just talk about where we are.
So Fine Arts A, B, C are, as Jason said, the original home of arts and architecture and all of the allied designs here at UF. And it's pretty cool. We still maintain space on the second floor where our first year students have their studios. The courtyard that's set up here is one of the early campus courtyards that sort of creates a set of spaces that link to the architecture building. And it's pretty nice. You usually have sort of festivals and fairs and gatherings out here as well.
Yeah, they have an event called Art Bash out here, which is actually super cool, big party that the art students have, and we always join that. The far side over here, that building with the columns in the middle, on the right-hand side is the lecture halls, and we have a lot of our lectures and classes in there. The left-hand side is where the art gallery is, and they have a lot of shows and other things going on. And these are another set of art and sculpture studios over here. It's really quite a pleasant space over here, and we tend to spend a ton of time hanging out here because those are the studios up there that you do your first year in. So, all right, next, where are we going, Nick?
We're going to Tigert Hall.
Oh, we're going to Tigert Hall. Tigert Hall is where the president of the university hangs out, so that's where we're riding next.
So this is Tigert Hall. This is the UF administration building. It was built in the early 50s as part of a boom of buildings on campus. It houses the office of the president, provost, dean of students, all the kind of administration of the school. It's often, or somewhat often, the site of, gatherings and speeches and such. So, Tigert Hall.
All right, now we're in an area called the Plaza of the Americas. This is really the center of what we think of as the old part of campus. Over here behind me, actually I'll spin it this way, this is Smathers Library. Smathers is the old library. It's actually really stately, old, super cool building. There's a reading room up top there that has some great kind of classic Hogwarts like Oxford style kind of campus Gothic, which is great. Over here is the newer segment of the library. It's quite large. They have a lot of great study spaces in it. It works pretty well. But just as important as this whole plaza here is sort of a huge area in the middle of campus. Everybody hangs out here in the middle of the day. They study out here. You set up hammocks out here. The Krishnas set up lunch over there in the corner. and you spend a lot of time over here. They just recently re-landscaped it, which is pretty great. This is sort of classic campus Gothic, and a really nice place in the center of campus. This links through to the other parts of campus, and we're going to kind of skirt around some of the older buildings and dorms, and then get into a bit more of the modern part of campus.
The original Plaza of the Americas was designed by the Frederick Law Olmsted's firm, the Olmsted brothers. And it was originally named for each of the countries in the Americas, North and South America. There used to be a tree for each of those countries.
And so just so you know, the Olmsted's designed Central Park in New York City and many of the other famous parks around the country. All right, let's go look at a couple other things. Okay, now we're in the old dorm area. This is the Murphy dormitory area. If you do an aerial here, these buildings are actually in the shape of UF, which seems a little ridiculous. Maybe I'll show you a map. Of that as well. The older dorms are really, they fixed them up. This is Thomas Hall. Kind of nicely. You can see there's a lot of campus Gothic. These were 1906 to about 1912. They have all these great carvings. It feels very academic for that, and it's actually really pretty nicely done. You can see. So, and so freshmen mainly live in these dorms. So you live here in your first year when you come to UF. After that, most students move off campus, although you have the option to stay on campus if you particularly desire. Anything else to add there?
Yeah, these are the first buildings built on this campus. So Murphy Hall, which is on the other side, is the first building. Buckman and Murphy. These are the buildings that were the dorms, the cafeterias, the classrooms, the teaching houses, all of the whole campus was these 4 or 5 buildings for a few years. It's pretty historical, and we get to still use all of them.
Mm-hmm. They've done a nice job of fixing them back up. Right out of the front there, down that alleyway, is University Avenue, and that's what we would call Midtown, or part of Campus Town there. That's where a lot of the businesses are that serve students. So, okay, we're gonna head off to something else now. Okay, so now we're at Ben Hill Griffin Stadium, Steve Spurrier Field. It's not really architecturally that much, but it's sort of just an impressive thing. I always kind of appreciate the fact that they allow you to just come out here on non-game days. I run stairs here sometimes, and yeah, it's pretty unpleasant, but there you go. This is the nice thing about it, I think, is that it's about 95,000 people fit in here, but it's in the center of campus, and so when you go to a game, you get to just walk here on campus and then be a part of all of this. And so as a community, it's pretty cool. I ran cross country, so we didn't like the football guys, but that being said, it's a pretty impressive thing.
So this is one of the fraternity houses on campus. There's a number of them in this part of campus, kind of down the road, and they run up Fraternity Row. This one in particular, though, is interesting. It was built by a Florida modernist, Gene Leedy. He's kind of based in Winter Haven, and it's a pretty cool building. It's made out of effectively parking garage parts. This is one of the first buildings to have these big double T's, which is the structural system of the roof there. And I don't know, it's pretty dramatic the way the cantilevers and the umbrella roof sort of work.
We'll just walk up the stairs here real quick. I'm 90% sure we're not allowed to do this. And take a look at the inside of the courtyard. Like a lot of Florida buildings, it has a lot of shading, it has a lot of courtyards. It's a fraternity house, so it's a little rough. But there's the inside of the courtyard. You see the way those T's support the balconies that run back and out of it, and that's their bigger common room at the front. It's a little rough. It's been treated sort of rough over the years, but it's one of these famous 60s structures that it really shows the way it's made. It's didactic, we would call it, which means that it teaches you how it's made, and we have a certain affection for that because the architecture building is that way as well. All right, now, so this is the end of campus over here, Fraternity Row. We're gonna go out just a little bit around Lake Alice, look at the Bauman Center, and then we'll head back into the center. So. Okay, behind me here is Lake Alice. It's a large lake that's on the western edge of campus. There's some great walkways that go around it. Good mountain bike trails over there too. Well, good in a relative term. And right over here are the UF bat houses where about 750,000 bats live. Nick's going to talk just a minute.
Yeah, these are like a South American fruit bats. They're pretty cool. They lived in Johnson Hall on campus through the 80s until a fire destroyed the building. They moved out of Johnson Hall and into the stadium, and that's where they began causing issues. That led the campus to build these bat houses in 1991, and since they've restored them a couple times and just recently added a third. And that's why they're here. This is the largest colony of these bats in North America, which is pretty impressive. They keep the mosquito population down.
Yeah, you come out here, actually just right along this fence line where you are, right at dusk every day, and 750,000 bats come out of that and fly around to feed for the evening, which I gotta say is pretty impressive. But if the wind's blowing the wrong way, there's a pretty strong smell of bat poop, so it can get a little intense. There's one of the nicest neighborhoods in town, Gulfview, is right on the other side of that. One of our former faculty members lives there. So, all right, we're gonna head over, maybe I think to the Bauman Center, and then really quickly, and then back onto campus. Okay, now we're at the Bauman Center. This is a small chapel that's built on the edge of Lake Alice. Originally, this was supposed to be designed by a famous architect from Arkansas called DEP20. Subsequently, it wasn't, but it was designed in a style similar to what that is. There's lots of little pieces. DEP20 does his in all wood, which is actually cooler, but it's a nice little space. It sits out on the edge of the lake here. It's closed today in terms of getting into it, but I can give you a view through the windows here as we come up to it. Oh, it's really a pretty nice space overall. You guys see into it there? It's sort of a nicely scaled building. And a reasonable place to come and kind of collect your thoughts, which we occasionally need to do. All right, so we are basically on the western edge of campus here. These are some of the married housing dorms. The new baseball stadium and softball stadium are over there, and some of the agricultural facilities, the museums are over that direction as well. But we're going to ride back and come back around to the museum, the old Natural History Museum on campus, the Wrights Union Lawn, a couple buildings, and then back where we started. Okay, now we're in front of the Wrights Union, which is the student union for the campus. Anyone who's familiar with the UF campus or who went here before about 2012 would remember the area behind me as being a large open walkway with the theater on one side and the Rights Union on the other side. 2016, we finished the addition to this by Canon Design, which fills that area in, creates a large atrium, new food courts, and some other areas that enhance the Rights Union. Behind me here, we have the Rights Union lawn. This goes back up to where we started before, Century Tower in the center of campus, and actually the architecture building is that way a little bit as well. It's a really large space in the center of campus. It's a little unstructured, and we keep talking about redoing it, but it hasn't really been done yet.
Over this way behind me is the Wertheim Laboratory building. It's not quite finished yet. It should be open around fall. It's a building by Grimshaw in New York City, and it's going to enclose the end of the lawn here and sort of create the edge to this part of the campus. And it's pretty remarkable as far as our campus goes to have these sort of sunshades on the front of a building like this. Really nice project.
Yeah, as you can imagine, on a campus that is largely dominated by campus Gothic brick buildings, it's difficult to build a modern building and decide what it should look like. And so this begins to reinterpret what we would build buildings like in the 21st century as opposed to the 19th century. And that's a gap that's sometimes hard to jump in architecture. Grimshaw and Associates is famous for doing buildings around the world, originally out of London. And as a science building, engineering and science building with laboratories, this is a pretty good example of what some of the modern buildings begin to look like here on campus. But it's tough to reinterpret that, so there's always arguments and fights about what that is. So, but yeah, they're doing a pretty good job. This building should be done next year. It has a large lower glass area that shows a lot of the technology that goes on in that building. Off behind that over here is where the journalism is. Journalism building, radio stations, all of the stuff that goes on with that. And Florida's sort of famous for having a really, really strong journalism program. Right on the other side of that building is actually the stadium. All right, now we're off to look at a couple other things.
I carry a portable tape recorder with me wherever I go, and I've recorded the sounds that I hear.
Okay, now we're back more on the east side of campus again. Right behind us here is a building that is kind of interesting. This is 1970. William Morgan and Associates office did this building, a firm out of Jacksonville that you can see this has the kind of 1970s building underground, green roof, the beginning of the kind of sustainability and green design that we talk about now, which started really back in the 60s and 70s. So we're going to walk through this building, and it's an all concrete building. We don't really build buildings all out of concrete like this anymore. This was the Florida Museum of Natural History. It's now the Research and Collections annex for the museum, and they built a new one. This is a really kind of beautiful space here, the way the light comes through under this. It's sort of a reduced material. It's all concrete, glass, or aluminum.
Little hints of wood here and there.
There's a courtyard back here. So there's a great courtyard back here. That's actually a Peter Rumpel building right across from there. He was on the faculty of UF when I was a student back in the mid-80s. They have these great concrete bridges. It's kind of a low building that looks out backwards onto the courtyard, so it's closed in the front and more open in the back. There's a lot of interest in Mesoamerican design at the time. University of Florida has the largest Mesoamerican collection of artifacts, I believe, in the country, and so this building was meant to house a lot of what was going on there as well. Have anything to add to that?
Just point out our calendar stone.
We do have a
Which is
giant
pretty cool.
Aztec calendar stone back
It's a
there.
reproduction of the original, but I don't know. This courtyard is just one of the more quiet, pleasant spaces on campus. There's a lot of interesting sort of grade changes and sectional things going on here.
A good example of what happened in the 70s. Okay, so we're going to zoom back up to Century Tower, which is right by the architecture building, and then finish our tour. Okay, now we're in Turlington Plaza, which really is the center of some of student life on campus. These tables and all the stuff around us tends to be full of students. It looks, actually, without people in it, it doesn't look nearly as nice as it does with people. I would have to say that General Purpose Building A, which is now called Turlington Hall, is not one of the finer architectural moments on campus. Rivaled by the Marston Library building over here, which is not, it works, but it's not really one of the better pieces of architecture on campus. However, if we walk over here, you can see through the trees there, we've got Century Tower. 1853 is the start of the University of Florida. Century Tower is 1953 then. I think this is a, what is this,
This is the potato.
5 billion year old potato? It's a rock that was donated to the university
By the geology department.
by the geology department. And over there is, there's the tower, and that is University Auditorium, which is really a grand old building. The concert hall inside of University Auditorium is really, really exquisite. There's a big pipe organ in there, and we were taught acoustics. The acoustics professor went in and played. Oh, can't do much better than that. The bells inside are actually, you can play them. There's a big keyboard in there. We've had students who have been privy to be able to be musicians and play the bells. On Friday at the end of school, they play kind of long musical numbers there. And in fact, in the distance there, right beyond the edge of, you can see it peeking out, is the music building. And the music building is adjacent to the architecture building. When arts were all together, it was the arts building, the architecture building, and the music building, which was all part of the same college there. Oh. And then if we look back this way, beyond Nick there, that's Plaza of the Americas, close to where we started the tour at the beginning. So we kind of did a big loop around campus here. No. All right, ready to go back to the architecture building?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
All right. All right, I think we are just now done with the tour. We're back in the architecture building. We have a School of Architecture and all of the other interior design. We have sustainability, we have historic preservation, we have the Rinker School of Construction Management, we have the School of Landscape Architecture and Planning. And planning's primarily a graduate degree. So we'll give you another tour later of this building in particular, but I want to thank my co-hosts here. Hey Finn, can you say hi?
Hi.
There you go.
Finn.
And Nick, who is also one of the professors here in the program. So we will finish up here. We're probably going to get back to work now in the classroom. So thanks for joining.